Have you ever felt like you gave a part of your life to something and it meant nothing at the end?
Sort of like when you feel like your time is not respected and appreciated.
Yeah, that's when I normally don't call people back or text them back. Yeah. You ever felt like, or have you ever maybe like recorded a podcast for an hour and a half and then it was gone?
A podcast that was so unhinged, we were all laughing hysterically and was so deeply meaningful, people in the room were weeping. Yes.
Yeah, that just happened to us.
Yes. We did. We lost the entire recording. This is actually the 46th episode of Pastors Unfiltered and the first time ever Judah messed up the recording.
I'm not going to blame it on I'm not going to blame it on Judah. I'm not going to blame it on a human. This is the devil's fault. Yeah. Satan hates us.
No, it's Jesus is alive. Easter is coming, and the devil is trying to punk us on Easter, but we already know he doesn't win.
That's right.
On this note, I do want to tell you a story, Tony. My mom came over for my wife's birthday on Sunday, and so my mom and I were there first, and my mom decided to give me a critique of the podcast. And remember, this is the person who shares DNA with me. Yes. This is the person who is biologically inclined to always side with me. Like, I grew up firmly a mama's boy. And my mom said this. She said, Brandon, I really like Tony on the podcast. And I said, why, Mom? And she goes, because Tony is the voice of reason.
That's how I can tell Barb is not Italian. Because Italians, number one, there is no reasoning with them because they're Mediterraneans. And number two, she is right. Let's start the show, Judah.
Hey everyone, my name is Tony. I'm a pastor in the Seattle area. I gave my life to Christ at 19 years old, and now we're planting a church in Seattle.
This is Dr. Reverend Pastor Brandon Beals. I gave my life to Christ when I was a high school student at 16 years old. It was 20 years ago when my wife Di and I moved from Modesto, California to the Seattle area and launched Venture Church. We are excited that you are joining us today on Pastors Unfiltered. I am having deja vu, Tony.
Well, folks, welcome to Pastors Unfiltered. This is your co-host, Pastor Tony Matar, joined by my lovely co-host, the Reverend Dr. Bishop Brandon Lee Beals. How are you?
I'm good. Tony.
Yes.
We had our Passover dinner last night.
I heard about it, and my phone, actually, I've been getting a handful of texts. Rabbi Matt, who was our guest speaker, he's a good friend of mine. I heard he said something very meaningful. Obviously, everything was meaningful, but I heard he said something in specific that was very meaningful to the gathering.
Yeah, I'm about to tell you a story that you've never heard before.
Never.
Rabbi Matt, again, awesome dude, super funny. If you've never been to one of our Passover experiences, you got to mark it on your calendar. Next year, Wednesday, the week of Easter, make it a priority. There's nothing that will make this really, we call this the Super Bowl week for churches, for Christians around the world. And to make your Super Bowl Christianity week meaningful, you should go to a Passover experience. But Rabbi Matt grabs me at the break time and he says, hey, this is the moment where I normally have the crowd pray for Israel. And he said, but I'm thinking about not only having them pray for Israel, the Jewish people, but also the Palestinians. How do you feel about that? And I said, sure. And he had told me that he had spent some time with you and how impressed he was with you. And the thing that he shared with me is he said, I went to lunch with Tony and I discovered that Tony's experiences with his family were the exact same as my experiences with my family. He said I would share my story of my family in Jerusalem and he would share his story of his family in Bethlehem. And how they are experiencing this war is very similar. And he talked about how helpful it was to see it through someone else's perspective.
Yeah.
Then while he's in front of everyone, he shared it. And you got to understand Matt. Like, Matt is goofy, sarcastic, never serious. Yeah. And there was about a 10-minute moment where he got like deadly serious when he told this story. And he said, I had just finished being at the synagogue and I was walking my dog. And he said, I came upon a Free Palestine rally.
Yeah.
And he said, I took my Star of David and I hit it, literally what he told us. And he said, so I walked my dog to the middle of this rally. And he said, while I was at this rally, he said, the Holy Spirit spoke to me and said, Matt, you need some Palestinian Christian friends. So he said, I didn't have any. I didn't even know where to find any. Yeah. He said, so I called my family in Jerusalem and asked them if they knew of any Christian Palestinians that he could talk to. And they said, we actually know of one, and they gave him your information.
Isn't that unreal? Yeah, it's crazy how God works like that. Yeah. I believe the highest form of intelligence is empathy. And Rabbi Matt has that. We spent so much time understanding each other's backgrounds, our people groups. There was a bridge there, and it's all because of Jesus. So I love him dearly. I love that he prayed for the Palestinian people as we pray for all people, that all people are invited to the table of Christ. So yeah, it was incredible. He's the man. He's also a cigar aficionado, but I know you don't smoke, so he's someone to consider hanging out with at some point.
I only smoke cigars off the record.
Off the record. This is
not
true.
Not on the record.
Hey, before we move forward, I do want to issue a public apology. Last week, I made a claim that there was some drama in the royal family, because I know they listen to this podcast. There was rumor and speculation that Kate Middleton's husband, what's his name? Prince what? Harry.
William,
had been cheating on her. Come to find out, because she'd been in hiding for 4 months, come to find out she has cancer, which we're praying for her healing. And, I just put myself in her shoes for a moment, and I thought, well, if Tony was gone for 4 months, and I didn't, and I was quiet on social media and life, and people thought, did he cheat on Ariel? Is that why he's been hiding? And then you come out and you go, well, actually, I have cancer. It felt like a swift kick to the nuts.
Voice of reason. Mom, I want to point this out. Like, Tony is the one that went unhinged on the royal family, and your precious son didn't say a word, just sat there in utter silence.
You actually did. I will say that. This last weekend, to celebrate Dr. Di, we went... Why did I call her Dr. Di? Well, she is a doctor, pretty much. We went and saw Trevor Noah, who I thought was hilarious.
Yeah.
Blew all my expectations.
Loved it. I had never really heard Trevor Noah before. Never watched The Daily Show. Didn't know what to expect. Was excited to go to a comedy show. Was excited to spend some time with you and Ariel.
Yeah.
And Trevor Noah was hilarious. He was clean.
Intelligent.
My favorite part was how he riffed spontaneously off the crowd.
Yeah.
And I've shared before that one of the best shows I've ever been to was TJ Miller, and it was his spontaneity working the crowd. And Trevor Noah took that to a whole other level.
Sure did.
Because the Paramount was packed. Probably, I don't know what that seats, 5,000 people, standing room only, packed, and somebody's phone went off, like the alarm on their phone, and he looks at his watch and says, 8 o'clock at night. Why is your alarm going off? And this guy named Beston tells him the story that this is a reminder that I need to go to sleep, and Trevor Noah could not compute why you would go to bed at 8 o'clock at night and be at a comedy show.
Yeah.
Instead, and he was, Beston was explaining that he has to get up at 4 a.m. to get to work, and that led to a really funny bit. I enjoyed Trevor Noah's bit on Boeing.
Yeah, he was brilliant.
Hit home a little bit, and Trevor Noah travels a lot, and when you fly a lot on airplanes, you don't want the airplane manufacturer of the planes you fly in the news.
Yeah.
Ever. You do not want them in the news. And Trevor Noah talked about his frustrations with Boeing and his concern with Boeing, made it very funny. I'd like to point out that less than 24 hours later, the Boeing CEO and several of the other executives resigned. I'm not saying because of Trevor Noah. I'm not saying it's not because of Trevor Noah.
He was hilarious. I loved how hard our wives were laughing. Di and Ariel were cracking up the whole time. And I was laughing too. The guy next to me, not laughing.
He didn't find it funny?
Not much. He was of Indian descent, and Trevor Noah in the show goes, "All right, where are my Indians at?" And all the Indians were like celebrating. This gentleman was not happy to be there. But
I also thought Trevor Noah's opening act, that guy from Haiti,
it was unbelievable.
He was super funny too.
Unbelievable.
And normally the opening acts are terrible and usually terribly offensive.
Yes.
And this guy, I would have watched an entire show of him.
Yes. Would you, before we dive into fact checking with Sean King, do you have any lobby moments you want to share?
Yeah, I actually have a couple that were pretty significant. They're all attached to the yard signs. So
Love it.
We encouraged everybody to take yard signs. We only made 300 of them. And my daughter, who kind of oversaw this project, was disappointed. She said, "Dad, only like 75 people have scanned and downloaded our website from the yard signs." And when you think about a yard sign, we drive by them all the time. They say, "Make America Great Again," Donald Trump. They talk about other churches or real estate agents, and you never stop to look at them. It's more familiarity with the brand and things like that. So the fact that actually 75 people took time to walk by, take a picture of it, scan it, download the website, and get information, I think is pretty awesome. But one of my favorite stories was from on Sunday. Connor and Maddie Takata pulled me aside after church and said, "Hey, Maddie was walking little baby Indy around, and we noticed that somebody was in our yard." And Connor said, "I looked out into my yard, and somebody was taking a picture of the Easter yard sign and downloading it." And I thought that was pretty awesome.
Come on, that's awesome. Yeah, that's great. I'm glad we've been doing those, and those have been awesome. I did not have a lobby moment, but I do want to bring up fact checking with Sean King. Sean King texted me last night and said this: "Ariel says that you shouldn't wash your head with shampoo and conditioner. 2 weeks ago, my wife was on the podcast and made fun of me for shampooing my head every day. He wrote, 'This is a fact. Tony is bald. You got to just give him this one.'"
I don't even know what that means.
I'm just going to keep shampooing my head no matter what people think.
Can I also point out that was an episode, that was 2 episodes ago, so Sean's behind? If I'm fact-checking, Sean fact-checking.
I appreciate the levels of accountability on this show.
Voice of reason. We need to make that one of your buttons eventually. Voice of reason.
Judah, do you have any?
My mom be the one it's going to be my mom's voice saying voice of reason.
You have any new buttons to show us this week or anything you got cooking?
Make Jesus famous.
What in the AI is that?
Who is that?
Who is that? Was that legit AI?
Is that Brandon Greenwald?
Make Jesus famous. Thanks, Martha. Hey, I wanted to talk about Mariner predictions. Tonight is opening night.
Okay, here's how I want to do this.
Okay.
I'm going to give a number
Okay.
of wins,
Yeah.
and you're going to pick the over-under, and then we're going to make a bet.
We're going to make a bet.
Fair?
Fair.
Over-under 92 wins.
I think they're going to go 95 wins. Over.
So you're picking the over.
I'm picking the over.
I will pick the under.
Okay.
Let's make a wager for the season.
Let's make a wager. Something that
We have witnesses.
we have witnesses. Something that would be worth. How about a tattoo?
Here's what I want to do. I am suggesting that if I win, you cannot shave for 2 months. If you win, I will completely go clean shaven for 2 months. I'll even buzz cut my hair.
I kind of feel like you're going to do that regardless, and you're kind of trying to find a reason.
I'm not
to do
going to
that.
shave my beard. I look like I'm 20 if I shave my beard, and my wife says, "Grow that back."
Okay, since you brought up your wife has a passion for your beard. My wife has she shows concern towards what facial hair I have and don't have. So, in all honesty and transparency on the show, with these men of God in the room, I want to honor my wife, and I don't know if
I guarantee you, I'll talk to Ariel,
Yeah.
and Ariel will sign off on this.
I guarantee that if you do that, our marriage will hurt. So I guarantee that we should probably not. I'm thinking long term here. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Are you thinking you won't have any more children?
I'm thinking I wouldn't be able to participate in the process. Yes. And, oh my gosh, Barb Beals listens to this, BB.
Voice of reason.
How about this? Let's circle back. Let's workshop. We'll come back next week and we'll find a bet that's reasonable.
Over under 92. I'm picking the under. Tony's picking the
I
over.
think we go all in. We got the best starting
I
rotation
talked
in
to
baseball.
a couple of the staff guys in the lobby. Both Morgan and Cole picked the over. Now, Morgan is an eternal Mariners optimist.
He's an optimist.
Just totally. But the fact that Cole picked the over, that might be actually an intelligent, opinion. But I still think it's the under.
Yeah.
I'm a Seattle sports fan. We get jacked all the time.
All the time.
Nothing ever works out. And so I just don't put my faith in anything other than Jesus.
Before we move on to today's content and our guest, did you know in our home we have a rule that I can only talk about Cole so much? Because I talk about Cole Hasty a lot.
Why?
Because him and I are we're bros. We kind of have like these little man crushes on each other. I know he thinks I'm good looking like him. Him and I are homies.
I will say you often bring up Cole on the podcast.
I just love that man so much.
And I go to like a fair amount of sporting events with Cole. He's never brought you up once.
I know. It's a one-sided relationship. I know. I will
He
expose
talks
his...
about Blair and a lot about Sydney, but
Yeah.
doesn't usually talk about Tony.
Ariel also instilled a rule in our home. David Diaz can only call between the hours of 4 to 5 p.m. and anything after 9. David is not allowed to call between 5 and 9 p.m.
David, my favorite thing about David is he is the king of calling when he's driving. Because
Always.
apparently he does not like being alone. So I can almost guarantee you when there's a commute from church home, I'm going to see it's David. Oh, he's driving in his car. He's calling me.
Yeah.
Not because he wants to talk. It's
We
because
just shoot
he doesn't
the
want to be
breeze.
alone. He's afraid to be alone in his car.
We shoot the breeze. I love
And then right when he gets to his home, he says, "Hey, I just got home. I got to go." He immediately hangs up. Like you can be in the middle of some big discussion and he will end it right when he gets home. And that's how you know you're being used.
Yeah. Oh. Complete side note, my friend Tim Cravens would love to be on the show. He's your former intern, youth kid. He's been in ministry. He would love to be on the show soon.
I think
tell
they
you
have
that.
their daughter just graduated.
Yeah.
I have 2 single sons. So let's get Tim on the show, and then possibly we'll do like the dating game.
Let's do it.
We'll have both of my sons compete to date. I think her name is Maddie.
She is gorgeous. Okay, well, hey, today,
The
folks.
second time around, we have lost control.
Oh, we have lost control, and I'll tell you why. I'm starving. It's almost lunch. I've been intermittent fasting.
I've had way too much caffeine and not enough food.
We're planting a church in 3 hours is what it feels like. So, yeah.
Raiders roll.
David, I'll take you up on lunch. Hey, I want to introduce our special guest today. We have a fellow church planter in the room, one who has been at Venture, but honored to get to know him more and introduce him to you guys. Can we introduce Darius Giles, everyone?
What is up, my most righteous of dudes? I appreciate your deep commitment to fitness, Pastor Tony, that you call skipping breakfast intermittent fasting.
You know what it is.
Bro said, I've been intermittent fasting, just really, really rough. Haven't
I
had
should have
food.
pulled the fasting card. It's for Lent.
It's been more than 5 hours since I've had a snack.
The best part was the first go around of this recording. It took Darius like maybe 15 minutes to become Darius on the podcast, and he
All
just
in.
jumped right in.
Darius
the
is all
second
in.
time around.
Darius is here. He's unhinged, and he is not AI.
It's going to be a rough episode. I'm glad you guys are having me back, though. Thanks for having me back.
Thanks for being here, bro.
I do want to say stick with this entire podcast to the very end, because towards the end, I'm going to have both. I'm not going to do it now. We're going to get serious for a little bit, but in a little bit, I'll have Darius and Tony in their best Donald Trump voices have a discussion about a topic that David will think about and tell us what the topic
be
is.
pretty
at
rough.
that point.
Yeah, you're going to dominate. Tell us a little bit about you, your family, and kind of your ministry background.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, I'll try to be kind of concise with it because I can ramble and ramble. I grew up. I had some church experience when I was a kid. My wonderful mom, she Googles me, which is the funniest thing to Google someone who has no internet presence at all. She Googles me and finds the 100 followers I have on Instagram. But so if she listens to this podcast, I would be remiss to say that like I never went to church as a kid. We went to church. There were several years when I was little that we went to church. But I started kind of going to church. I would say kind of most by myself. I don't remember when I was like around 9 or 10. And we weren't like a traditional church family like you would think of a venture church being a church family. I love my parents. There's a lot of love in my home. There's also a lot of just trying to figure out how to be a crazy family in my home. And so that was my experience and my background. And I'm a little neurospicy. And so I'm a little bit crazy as well. When I graduated high school, I got saved when I was 16, 17, graduated high school. I knew I was going to go be a youth pastor, did an internship at church. And I launched like a campus ministry my senior year of high school. And that was like when I knew that I wanted to see God move, that I wanted to see like a move of God. That when I was 17, I started praying for revival. I've been praying for revival since I was 17 years old. I turned 34 this summer, so it'll be 17 years this summer that I've been praying that God would let me see revival. So after that experience of like seeing kind of like a move of God sweep through my school when I was a senior in high school, it was a really powerful thing. I was it. Like I knew that I had other stuff that I was passionate about, but like serving Jesus was the thing that I wanted to do. I got married. I was 20. My wife was 19. My wife, she was put in foster care when she was 7. And so both of us brought our own different baggage and healing that we needed to our marriage. 5 years after being married, we find out we are not what we think. 5 years after being married, we were like, you know what? We are really struggling. I had suicidal thoughts since I was an adolescent. And I thought that was normal. Like everybody thought about taking their life often. And then it got to a point to me where it was like, it moved beyond suicidal thoughts to ideations, beyond ideations to plans. And there was a breaking point where I was a youth pastor and this was all just like stuff that was pressed down. And there was a point where I was like, hey, I need, like my wife and I have to go get healing. And so in 2016, we started doing that. And out of that, there's some just profound stuff. And we're on a lifelong recovery process, a lifelong journey of healing with Jesus and a lifelong journey of revival with Jesus. And so out of that has flowed a lot of crazy ministry, because once you start getting crazy healing in your life, especially mentally and emotionally, and Jesus just gets a hold of you in that way, it impacts the way you preach. It impacts the way I pray for people. It impacts the way I do altar calls. Like when I do altar calls, for mental health stuff, like it's a very real, serious thing for me. And I have an insight into what people are going through. So anyway, all that eventually just in 2022 became like, God told my wife and I, like we kind of knew in 2022 that we were supposed to plant a church. And then we graciously gave Jesus as much time as he wanted to change his mind about that. And then he did not. And so 2023 rolled around and we linked up with my perennial coach, big brother, pastor, Rodney Wardwell at New Hope Church. And we're part of New Hope Church, and we're planting a New Hope in Bonnie Lake, Washington in just a couple months. So that's it. We just want to reach jacked up people like us that need Jesus. We're trying to be famous in every trailer park in the South Sound. I want every person that lives in a trailer park in the South Sound to know. I grew up in a single wide trailer, slept on a bunk bed till I was 17 years old, and I moved out 6'2", so you can imagine feet hanging off the edge. I want every single person who's ever lived in a single wide trailer to either hate our church or go to our church, but they'll know about it either way.
So you were a youth pastor for how many years?
Almost 10, like 9 years.
And where did you serve as a youth pastor at?
The short stint at Calvary Christian Assembly in Seattle, 3 years at Creekside Church in Linwood, 5 years at Faith Tri-Cities in Pasco. Worked with amazing lead pastors at all those churches. Amazing people. Yeah.
So for you, you guys are strategizing your church plant, you're raising money, and you've been having preview services, kind of prayer meetings, worship nights. Do you want to describe those?
Yeah. Thank you, dude. I feel like I feel a little special right now. I'm getting a lot of attention right now. I'm going to go to my head. Yeah, we've had 2 of our pre-launch meetings. The first one, we're like kind of running out of, we're butting up against space. And I don't mean like, we're butting up against space issues in our venue. We had 65 people at our first gathering. A lot of those people were just kind of coming out to say, hey, congratulations on starting this journey. But then, honestly, kind of surprised me. I thought we'd probably have 30-ish people at our next gathering. I think it was about 50 people at our next gathering, still like standing room only at that gathering. And so there's still enough space. Like we could have brought more chairs into that gathering, and people could have sat down. But if we have another gathering that's like north of 60 people in a few weeks, then we'll have to find a new venue for these pre-launch meetings. Over the summer, we'll for sure have a dip in attendance because it's just going to be summer, it'll be nice weather. But also, we'll do some stuff outside the summer. We want to baptize 100 people before September. That's like our big dream right now. Is I had a person who's kind of on our plant team challenge me and asked me like what my God dreams were. And I was like, my God dreams are, I love Jesus. My God dreams are people hear Bible. And our dream is to thank you. That always is just the most condescending sound for every joke. It makes me feel so good. Our dream is to baptize 100 people before the end of September. So we've got 5 people signed up.
Love it, man. That's awesome. So you guys are planting Bonnie Lake. Tell us when you're planting.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's
September
incredible,
15th.
man. Yeah, I mean, September 15th. What are you guys doing between now and then? Is it fundraising, preview gatherings?
Yeah. Well, the Lord didn't open up the floodgates of heaven and drench us with the torrents like he did for some people, Tony. So yeah, we're still fundraising. Thanks for
Brandon
bringing it
Beals
up.
did fundraise a lot for Venture. You're right.
And so if you're listening to this, and if I don't know, does Tony brag about does he like share about how powerful his fundraising was on this podcast?
Who brags about that?
Okay, well, it was insane. And if you're listening to this, Tony deserves a pat on the back and a punch in the gut because he got everything that every church planter dreams of and worked hard for it. So
You know what he did is that all these churches had resources that they were going to give to church planting, and Tony just beat you to the punch with each one of them.
Bro, right after he started fundraising, I had a call that had been on the books for a month or two. And right after you started fundraising, I had a phone call with a guy, and he goes, we would love to have you out, but Tony's going to be here next Sunday. And I was like, that's great. Did Tony give you his address? Because I would just asking for a friend. Do you know where he lives, where he hangs out, what his weaknesses are? What's he allergic to? Has he got peanut allergy?
You got to tell me who it is later.
Yeah. No, it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
It was, the name's blanking on me right now.
That's crazy. I mean, hey, God's been faithful to us. He's been faithful to you.
Oh, he has for sure. That's good, dude.
But you're launching September 15th.
We're launching September 15th. We are still fundraising. I got like a big fundraising circuit that's still. I mean, we have $55,000 cash that's raised. So like,
praise God.
That's insane. For me, that anyone has trusted us with gifts, and there are churches like Venture Church Venture Church is our second biggest giver. Period. Like, there's only one other church that has given slightly more than Venture Church. You guys have been so.
We want to be first. How much more do we have to give?
Oh, easy. You have to give $5,001.
Okay.
That was easier than I thought it would be.
Transferring it from our Seattle account.
Yeah, please do. Yeah. It's not like we're doing anything with it.
All that to say, like, you guys have just been so gracious, and God has been so gracious. So, yeah.
Yeah. I would love, PB, you get hit up for money all the time from church planters and dudes who aren't just here, guys who are going all across America because, you've become known for this thing.
Yep.
Why is it that you felt we needed to support Darius versus, other calls maybe you get?
The big thing for me, I would really say there's 2 major reasons. Number one, he's planting in the Seattle area.
Come on, let's
and
go.
The 2 studies that have come out, ironically, within the last month that talk about what we know living around here, that this is by far the least churched area in America. It's the least religious, and 2 different studies have come out about that. And anybody who's willing to plant in the Seattle area, we want to cheer on and support. And if somebody comes and says, you know what, God has called me to plant in Dallas. They're on their own, dude. There's so many churches in Dallas. Somebody wants to go plant in Phoenix. Fine, more power to we support you.
Yeah, amen.
Nashville,
Boise.
Idaho.
Right.
Yeah, those, I mean, whatever God calls you to do.
Do it.
I always find it ironic that God calls people to the places where people go to church versus calling them to the Seattle area. And then what ends up happening a lot when church planners from other states are considering planting in the Seattle area, I will usually meet them at the beginning of the journey. Hey, my wife and I, we're here. We're checking out the area. We feel like we're going to move from Texas to plant here. And then they always 2 months later come back and say, hey, I want to meet. I'm going to follow up with you. We decided where we're going to plant. And guess where they always tell me they want to plant?
Kirkland.
Bellevue, Kirkland. I'm like, of course. Like you're picking like the nicest area, one of the nicest areas in America to plant. But when a guy comes and says he wants to plant in Bonnie Lake and wants to attract everybody from all the trailer parks,
Serious. I'm dead
like
serious.
Bonnie Lake, in our first rendition of this podcast, Darius talked about what it was like to drive here and how he doesn't even like driving through this area
many
because
Teslas.
there's too much money and all of this. And I just reminded him that you once you drive past Mill Creek a little bit, you end up in Marysville. And so Marysville, Bonnie Lake, people want to, so that's part of it.
Everett is my vibe for sure. I'm from Yakima, so like I'm a little ratchet sometimes.
Well, and then I would say, and the second reason is I believe in the principle of seeding. I believe that if we're willing to seed into someone else's church planning effort, we're going to reap in our own. And I also believe that it's hypocritical for us to go around and raise money from other churches when we're not willing to help somebody else's dream come true. So I would say those are the reasons why.
I'm super thankful for you guys. It's a crazy, I don't want to drag this on, but it's like a crazy full circle moment for me because I'd never met Pastor Brandon. I shook his hand one time 10 years ago at a summer camp, and I was like terrified that he was going to try to wrestle me right there.
Was I speaking at it or something?
You came to visit Morgan, and I had been making fun of the Canyon Creek kids at that time all week long. That was our shtick. Me and my buddy was like, we just made fun because Venture Church was always the biggest church at camp, and so we were like, oh, we're gonna make fun of the biggest group. And then you came to visit Morgan. And I was like, hey, if he told this.
You thought Morgan told on you, so that
you were like a small Italian
Morgan's
stick
not
of
a
dynamite.
snitch.
And that you were just gonna. Yeah.
you make fun of me. I'm telling Pastor Brandon he's gonna show up,
I'm gonna tell my daddy.
and he is angry.
And you were like, dude, you were just like jacked, and I was like, okay, I'm not gonna mess with this dude. And so that was the only time I met you. But you were very kind when I met you. But then a year ago, a little over a year ago, I didn't know who you were, but I had seen you speak at some stuff and talk about church planting, and I went to a Church Multiplication Network launch event, and at the end of it, the Lord spoke to me and said, Darius, I want you to reach out to Pastor Brandon. And I just knew that was what I was supposed to do. And I'm probably a little bit, if anything, too, like, I'll pray about what clothes I'm supposed to wear in the morning. Like, I'll pray. I'm a little too oversensitive.
So did God tell you to wear that Star Wars t-shirt?
I know that sounds dumb, dude, but I literally will like I'll try to like discern as I'm picking out clothes. And this was a shirt I got out, looked at it, prayed, felt good about it, and put it on. As dumb as that sounds, like, here's the crazy thing though, dude. It's as weird as that sounds, and I think oftentimes it's just me being weird. But I prayed driving into the Starbucks drive-thru last week, and this is just part of the church planting season too. But I said, God, I want to have an encounter with somebody at some point today. 10 seconds later, I get to the Starbucks drive-thru. The young lady on the intercom asked me what I want. I say this. I say I want 2 pup cups because I've got 2 little dogs and we have no children. We just have 2 dogs. And she said, can I ask you a weird question? I thought she was going to make fun of me for getting 2 puppuccinos. And I was like, yeah, you can ask me a weird question. She goes, are you a pastor in Bonnie Lake? And I said, well, I'm about to be. We're planning a church in Bonnie Lake. And she goes, no, I saw you at a Bible study at the Bonnie Lake Starbucks. And I was like, you did not. I've never had a Bible study at the Bonnie Lake Starbucks. I pulled up to the window. She wanted to talk more about it. She wanted one of our church plant cards. I asked her, do you go to a church in Bonnie Lake? She says, no, I can't find one. And I said, you just found one. And she was like, yeah, you sat next to my friend Bo at this thing. She had me confused for someone else. She thought I was someone completely different and ended up getting an invitation to our church. My point being, like, praying about my clothes, probably a little weird, but dude, God does so much weird stuff in my life like that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Do you pray about your clothes, Tony?
No.
What about, do you pray about your hairstyle?
No, I don't pray much. I don't pray much. Everything's prayer.
We can't tell. You pretend really well.
No,
You
know
remind
what
me of a young Creflo Dollar.
Oh, thank you. Last episode was Kenneth Copeland, so I'll take Creflo with his crap theology on tithing. So
It was a full circle moment for me because I called Brandon a year ago. He's been coaching me for a year, and now I get to do this podcast with you. That's what I was
So here's the thing, though, that I think we learned from our friends who are missionaries.
Yeah.
Everything is prayer. Everything's an opportunity. Every person you meet, everything you're doing, when you're walking in the city, you just say, God, open a door today. God, let me meet someone. Like it is.
That stuff works.
You're constantly, and I think that's why I would say personally in this season, I don't have a set prayer time. Like, I pray in the mornings.
Sure.
I'm praying all day long because it's on my mind my all day long. So yeah.
I think a lot of unspiritual people that I know often will say stuff like that.
Yeah. You're welcome.
I think what's really cool about the two of you planting in the Seattle area is planting in this area. And again, you got 3 church planters in this podcast right now. We planted 20 years ago. It's the same deal today. And when you plant in this area, you have to live like a missionary. And you're inviting people from Starbucks, you're walking the streets, finding people, and you rarely have a conversation with somebody that will say, I got 20 friends. We all go to church and we're looking for a new church. That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
No.
Here it's like, I have a need, looking for some sort of hope. And then we get to be Jesus in the midst of it. And one of the lines that we say at Venture all the time is that we believe that at just the right moment, Jesus will cross someone's path. And that when he crosses their path, he changes everything. It's the cool part about being a church planter in Seattle. You don't get to see things where thousands of people show up. But over time, if you're faithful, God does something really, really significant.
Yeah, and I actually want to say, PB, like one of the, it was like 2 weeks ago, I came into PB's office and I was like, dude, I was just stressing out. Like, man, what if I've read all the statistics? If we don't have 100 people at our first gathering, we're dying a slow death and it's going to be awful. And do you remember what you said to me as I came all nervous to you about numbers and metrics and how many people we're going to have? Because I've told our team, our launch team, hey, I'm not counting. Someone else on our team is going to count. They're going to input the numbers. I'm not, because I did too much of that as a youth pastor.
Yeah, for real. Me too.
Even if we had really big nights,
me too.
It wasn't big enough for me.
Yep.
So I'm not doing that anymore.
Well, it's almost like our soul needs Jesus and not the success that we can measure.
100%. And I remember what you said to me is you said, Tony, I don't care how many people show up. I'm proud if we just get the thing going. And I was like, dude, that's it. Maybe that's all I needed to hear.
As I was driving to work today, gearing up for this podcast, I was listening to my friend's podcast, the Overchurch podcast, and they had a guest who had planted a church 20 years ago. So I related to this a lot. So it's a new church planner, Justin and Delisha. They're interviewing a seasoned church planner, and the guy's name was Reginald Steele. And he quoted the verse from Zechariah 4:10, and it's what I always remind you guys when you do this. And Zechariah 4:10 just reminds us to not despise small beginnings.
That's good.
Because the Lord rejoices in seeing the work begin. And he now pastors megachurch. So it's very similar to the venture journey is, I get to look back 20 years later and our church is a megachurch, but I remember when it wasn't. And he said, our first service, we had 37 people. And he said, I'd never worked at a small church, and now I'm pastoring 37 people. And he said, immediately you feel like this was a bad decision. And that's when the Lord just reminded him, don't despise small beginnings because the Lord rejoices in seeing the work begin. And for me, anybody who's willing to be a church planner, this is the hardest thing that you will ever do in church work. Like nothing is more difficult than the first 3 years of planting a church. But once you navigate through those first 3 years, and the devil, I always say this, that the Bible says that upon this rock I'll build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. We know there are churches everywhere that have not had any real Spirit of God anointing in them. But they're celebrating their 85th, 100th anniversary. Once a church gets established, the devil can't really close it down. So he works overtime when churches first start. But if you make it past those first 3 years, Jesus establishes church and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. So those first few years, press on. Don't despise small beginnings, because the win is that you did it.
Yeah. Come on.
Yeah.
And we know there's lots of church jobs, especially throughout Western Washington.
Yeah.
Lots of churches hiring associates, lots of churches hiring senior pastors. So the fact that you guys are willing to go plant a church says a lot.
Dude, the thing that's powerful, the thing that I'm not pretending, like the thing that you said that I didn't catch, or you didn't say the same way maybe in the first time we recorded this, was you just said, like, once a church gets established, the devil can't shut it down. I don't know why that just hit me so hard. That's powerful, dude. Like, just like the reality that once God establishes his work, there's nothing the enemy can do to stop it. That's just powerful.
The people that shut it down are us.
Yeah, for real.
Like it ends up being because it's not quite what a pastor thought, or it's not quite what a denomination thought, and then they shut the doors. But the stories of churches that are 50 years old have declined down to like 18 people. They get a new leader that comes in, and all of a sudden the church gets reinvented. Again, we have a whole faith. We're heading towards Easter. What is Easter all about? It's all about the resurrection. God loves to take things that are dead and resurrect them and bring new life in them. We did this. I did this teaching to our staff in our staff meeting where I talked about, it was Wednesday. And so Wednesday of Passion Week, let me test Tony. What happened Wednesday, Passion Week?
Spy Wednesday.
It's Spy Wednesday, and it is the day where Judas agreed to betray Jesus. Right. So it's where betrayal began. And I did this teaching on how betrayal, when you experience betrayal, prepare yourself. It's a warning that a crucifixion is coming. Yep. Like, the betrayal isn't the bad part, but it is a sign that you're about to get crucified. But the benefit is, if you persevere through the crucifixion, there's a resurrection that follows.
Come on.
And everything post-resurrection is better than the best time pre-resurrection. And so when betrayal comes, you make it to the crucifixion, you survive it, the resurrection comes, and everything is better. And we've all seen like the moments where I go back in the history of my church where I think I got betrayed there, then I got crucified. But I survived.
Come on.
And then the resurrection came.
Come on.
And I think like the greatest example of this for all of us, every church in America felt like we got crucified over COVID, except for the 3 or 4 that, were anti-mask, anti-vax.
They did it, man.
We should have just done that. Why did we try to be like Jesus?
I know. I always say, if I just would have decided we're going all in on Donald Trump,
I need you to go more right wing.
we would be.
We would have blown our church up.
We'd be 5,000 right now.
I know. We wouldn't need to.
I wasn't leading a church in 2020, so I have absolutely no comments. I did nothing.
I want to suggest something.
Yeah.
For the two of you, you're both church planners.
Yep.
You're both church planners in the Seattle area. I think you guys need to become homies. I think
we
you
already
guys
are
need
homies.
to become like brothers. You guys are in this thing together. Before we recorded the podcast, I got together with our tech team while you guys were waiting to come, and we thought, what is an illustration that I can give for Darius and Tony? Because they need to be in this thing together. And here's some suggestions they gave. You ready?
Let's hear. Here we go.
They think you guys are like Bill and Ted.
Let's go.
They think you're like Jerry and George.
Oh, what's the deal?
Chandler and Ross.
I get to be Chandler.
Michael and Dwight.
I'm Dwight.
Scotty and MJ.
I'm neither.
Batman and Robin.
I'm Batman.
Mary Kate and Ashley.
I'm Ashley.
This is the best part.
Oh, you think Mary Kate's better than Ashley? I'll fight you on that one.
The best part is him claiming somebody. Okay, let me keep going. That you guys should be like Shaggy and Scooby.
He's Scooby.
He finally doesn't claim it. He finally doesn't claim it.
How are we going to solve it?
I get to be the dog.
Oh, this part's better than the first time. Let me keep going. Tom and Jerry.
I'm both. Yeah.
SpongeBob and Patrick.
Oh, yeah. I'm Patrick. I'm the dumber one for sure.
Han and Chewie.
Oh, I'm Chewie.
Shrek and Donkey.
I'm Donkey.
Zach and Cody.
I'm Cody. Cody's the handsome one.
I don't want to comment. Dan Schneider was part of that show, and I don't want to be part of anything that Dan Schneider was a part of.
Ariel recommended that I watch that Max special on those Nickelodeon stars.
I want to watch it.
It was pretty terrible. I think the worst part about that was when the PA for Nickelodeon sends the inappropriate email to the girl. The girl runs out of her room crying, confesses it to her mom. Her mom thinks, let's not tell anybody. That mom should be somebody
moronic.
I don't know what to say. Anyways,
Some Old Testament stuff right there.
My personal, this is what I think the two of you are. This is the best metaphor that I have.
Right.
Okay.
You guys
Yeah.
are the church planning in the Northwest Ministry
Yes,
Network
Lord.
Yes.
version
Yes, Jesus.
of Taylor Swift and Travis
Taylor
Kelce.
Swift. Before he even finished, I'm Taylor Swift. You think you have the charisma to pull off the Eras tour? I'm totally kidding. You do. You do. You could put those leotards on, and I would watch you dance all night in that onesie.
Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce of church planners.
That's a little too intimate, but I still want to be Taylor.
He's claiming to you're Travis
I
Kelce.
physically identify as Travis. I know you look more like him.
I can't
I'm
grow
going to
a
go
beard,
with
though.
Travis because I have a podcast and so does Travis. And
Oh.
you're the one that's out there. I'm not the outgoing type. You are. I'm more of an introvert. Most people don't know that about me.
People like you. I'm also an introvert. But
I can't tell.
people like you.
But here's the deal. You're like Taylor Swift because, as Darius pointed out, you're like the rich church planner.
Okay.
And he's like Travis Kelce because he is
Got that
like
Taylor money.
the jacked church planner.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, man, this has gone so off rails. We need to wrap this thing up soon.
Well, I forgot the one thing we talked about it the first go round.
Is it the Dawn
Oh
thing?
no.
Oh, we're doing that. No, there's two. There's two bits.
What's the other thing?
The first one is the guys beforehand talked to me about the reason that you started lifting weights. Will you share the reason that you started lifting weights?
Yeah, the reason was it was just as a child growing up in Austria, there wasn't a lot of other options. You know, and my father was really hard on me, and my mother wasn't always around. So, you know, I would do the lifting and the pumping and the screaming and the shouting, and all of the shirtless boys were hanging out, picking things up and putting them down, and then they became really good at it. So, you know, now I'm a star. Does that answer that? Does it answer your question?
This is going to be on YouTube, and everyone's going to see
I feel
our
like
reaction.
Pastor Brandon is just increasingly hating me more and more.
Oh, he's loving it. That's the thing. He's loving every second of this.
I was really scrawny. My dad was a personal trainer. My dad was jacked, and I got picked on a lot. I was young for my grade and a late bloomer. So like my birthday is July 28th of like the following year, right? So I was always the youngest kid in my grade. I was a late bloomer, and so I started lifting weights because I was like, I don't want to be an easy target anymore. And I still got picked on until I like hit puberty, and then I started punking kids, which was really funny. But yeah, that's it.
Never forget, what do we learn from Cobra Kai? Strike first, strike hard. That's how you win.
Oh, I'm a lover.
Okay, I want to do you both like accents, apparently.
I don't want to get canceled.
We're going to do Donald Trump. David, give me a topic.
Healthcare.
Okay,
Oh, wow.
we are going to talk about
Inequities in healthcare.
inequities in healthcare with your best Donald Trump accent.
So good at this.
Let's start with Tony.
Darius is so good at this. Okay.
We're both pretty bad at it, but I actually
yours
like,
is really good.
I actually like your impression personally.
That Obama.
That was great.
That Obama. I don't even know where to go from there.
I know David gave you guys, he brings up healthcare.
Something really serious.
Donald
Tony
would
and
say-
Darius. What do the two of them
What do
know
we
about
know about?
healthcare?
That's the
I go to the
Okay.
doctor once every 9 years.
We're going back to, let me help. We're going to go back to the movie that debuts today is the new Godzilla and King Kong. Tony, Godzilla, King Kong as Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Choose your side. Who do you pick, Godzilla or King Kong?
Okay, here's what Donald will say. Donald will say, I don't support Godzilla. He's from China.
Oh, I love that.
He's from China. China. Godzilla is not an American. I know Godzilla. I'm done. I'm so hungry right now.
I love that.
It's
I thought
12.
it was good.
I skipped breakfast.
All right, you
Jesus.
get King Kong in Donald Trump.
King Kong, listen. Here's the thing. King Kong is a big monkey, right? He's a big monkey man. Where are we? Yeah. Is it time for me to leave yet? King Kong isn't a gorilla. When I was a kid, gorillas didn't fight lizards. No. This is all the Republicans' fault. Does that help? That it's Joe instead of Don?
That was his best Joe Biden.
Ouch.
All right, we have officially gone off the rails.
With that being said, let me ask you our 3 questions that we ask every guest.
Yeah.
We ask them, what are you listening to? What are you reading? And what's something fun you're doing?
Absolutely. I told you guys this. I'm bad at listening to podcasts, but
But we agreed that you're going to listen to Pastors Unfiltered on your 4-hour drive back to Bonnie Lake.
absolutely.
That's right.
In the covered wagon all the way back down where I belong. Listen to some Pastors Unfiltered. I do like... I love comedy podcasts. I've been a comedy nerd for a long time. I was really impressed when you pulled out T.J. Miller. That was really cool to me. But Conan Needs a Friend with Conan O'Brien, Fly on the Wall with Dana Carvey and David Spade, and Pastors Unfiltered with Pastor Tony Matar and Pabi. What am I doing for fun? I mean, honestly, mostly I like to just hang out with my wife. We play video games. My wife's a big gamer. It's really, really cool. We read books. We're reading Pride and Prejudice together right now, which is good, but it's old. It's hard to get through. I've read about 9 books this year, but right now I'm currently reading Why Revival Still Tarries for the 3rd time. That's an insane book. I think every pastor should read that book. The Body Keeps the Score, which I think should be mandatory reading for pastors, especially talking about mental health stuff. And I'm reading a couple other fiction books, but yeah.
Are you reading Fourth Wing?
What's Fourth Wing? Tell me more.
Every Caucasian, millennial, Gen Z girl is reading it right now.
Oh.
I'm going to recommend it. I don't know anything
Is
about
it about Taylor Swift?
All her followers read those kind of books. So yes.
Really funny.
Our church has a group of 20-something girls that have a book club. And I got to be honest, I actually enjoy the books they read in their book club, so they recommend them to me. So I'm a closet member of their book club.
I love that. That's a really cute moment. That's like a girl dad moment for you.
Yes.
I love that. Wait, so what's your favorite book that they've read that they suggested to you?
I never remember the names of the book because they all become a blur and merge together with the same storyline and things. But they introduced me to Frida McFadden.
Okay. I don't even know who that is.
They're very, basically woman gets picked on by man, murder thrillers type books.
Oh, dang.
So they're interesting.
That's intense.
I did just listen to I listened to an Audible book by C.J. Box. Have you heard of him before?
No.
He does thrillers that are based in Montana, Wyoming, and things like that. And it was incredible. It's called Highwayman. Awesome book.
Do you like Jack Carr? You seem like you like Jack Carr. They did a show with Chris Pratt. They did a show based on one of his books.
Okay. I watched the show, Amazon Prime show. Yeah. I like the Amazon Prime show.
Show's decent. I think you'd love. I don't know if you like that kind of stuff, like military thriller type stuff.
That's my wife.
Oh, funny.
She likes those things.
Okay, you'll have to ask Di. Tell her I'm curious if she likes Jack Carr.
This is the way I describe my pop culture interests.
Yeah.
If something could have meaning,
Yeah.
deep meaning to it, I won't like it.
That's awesome.
And it is because
I love that so much.
Well, it's because my life has meaning.
Yep.
So everything I do is about helping people, having meaning. So when I'm not doing this, I want complete, utter escapism.
Stand-up comedy, something fun and silly.
I don't want to think.
That's good. I don't have to think a lot, but I'm just not that smart, so it's not hard for me.
Oh, Darius.
Cool.
Well, hey man, we support you.
Tony, I love you, dude.
love you
Genuinely,
too, bro.
I want to say I love you, and I'm thankful that you have reached out to me and prayed for me in this season, and you have been a bro in this season. We've been trying to plant churches together, so I'm praying in Jesus' name for a real, genuine, unique move of God at Venture Seattle. And yeah, if that's 30 people, or if it's 50 people, or if it's 80 people, I receive that in Jesus' name. But dude, they're the history of the charismatic church and of the Church of Jesus is a history of the cities that people thought where the David Wilkersons went, the cities where people thought this city is lost to the gospel. And those are where the biggest revivals have taken place in Los Angeles at Azusa Street. And I'm praying and believing that in Seattle, in the Green Lake area at Venture Seattle, we're going to see all these people that the studies say are not interested in religion come out to meet a real living God. So
Amen.
I'm praying that over you.
Thank you, man.
Darius, we want to give you a hat.
What?
In
I've
honor
never
of
seen
coming to this podcast twice. You get your very own I Found God in Seattle hat. Wear that with pride.
I will.
Kind of sums up what you guys are doing. But thank you again for being on our podcast.
Appreciate
Thank
you,
those
man.
of you that listened. We have a really important podcast next week. So if you made it all the way to the end, this is a pump that we have a huge announcement to make next week that we will be making live on the podcast. And I encourage you to listen to it.
I'm excited. Well, hey, folks, thank you for being with us. Don't forget to like and subscribe, rate this 5 stars, please. Share it with someone that you feel like it would just bless today. So thank you for being with us. We're excited. Join us at one of our Easter gatherings across all our campuses. And last but not least,
Let's make Jesus famous.
go Mariners.
Thanks, Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, for being on this week's episode.
You're welcome.
Raiders roll.